Good evening. It is October 4th, 2022. Tonight is the night we have a good chance in Michigan of seeing auroras. Unfortunately, Wisconsin and Minnesota, you may be clouded up. We will get to our forecast real quick. We're going to look at a view of our sun. Quick note, I did post videos from Ben Davis of a suspicious observer and Tamitha. Please watch those videos. It always pays to get perspective from lots of different teachers. And teachers have a different way of saying things. And sometimes a teacher will say something that just clicks in your head a certain way and you remember it. So always take time to learn from lots of different perspectives and lots of different teachers. And that's why I posted those today, so you could hear from their perspective as well as mine. Okay, so you can hear that we're out here saying kind of the same thing, but you can hear in different ways of saying it that might stick in your head. Okay, looking at our sun, I'm going to put it in rotation. You're going to see lots of this little filament eruptions and CMEs and the plasmas and the flares. Looking down here, we have this rapidly changing and developing and a big couple of flares from down here. And we just got a lot here to talk about. There goes a big pop there. Now watch this down here. Here's our burst flare. Boom! There goes the burst flare. Wait for it. It's going to happen again right down in here. And right there goes our second big one. This is going to be interesting to watch. And I'm going to make a comparison that you can think of. Have you ever watched a thunderstorm? And if you ever sat and watched a thunderstorm, there's usually more than two active regions where there's continually lightning coming from one or two more active regions. And they tend to have a conversation. So one spot will go off, and then way on the other side of the storm, another spot will go off. And then the other spot will answer it, and they kind of talk back and forth between each other. This is kind of what's been going on between 3110 and 3112. Well, now 3110 is kind of expelled its energy, and it's kind of starting to die down and lose its oomph. But now we have 3117 and 3115 and 3114 down here at the bottom, starting to rapidly develop over the last 24 hours, and they're starting to steal the energy. And there's this coronal hole region running right up the midline, right here. And Tamitha talks about how there might be a midline energy region here, that as this rotates in, it might be hitting an energy spike. And these regions might be like that point in the thunderstorm that they start talking to each other, like 3110 and 3112 was. Well, maybe the energy is going to shift, and it's going to be 3115 and 3117 that are rapidly developing. Let's start talking to 3112 and 3116, and we see that energy change and shift, and now we have the new spots talking to each other, and they're going to maybe not quite rapidly take off in the next 24 hours, but as they get just past Earth basing, then they're going to start following that pattern that all the other sunspots have, where that as they get just past perfectly Earth basing, they rapidly take off and start rebuilding energy again. So this is what we're looking for. And we know historically over the last, since March, almost every big sunspot player has gotten just past Earth basing, and then they all of a sudden rapidly intensified as they're going around that, from just past a day past Earth basing until they go around that limb, they become major Earth players or Earth sunspot flares. And they start big sunspot players. And they become big active regions. So we're looking for those to start to develop probably about that time. And that's why I'm saying we want to watch those. And this is just becoming, as we watch these pop off, man, there's just some monster filament development here between these spots. And it becomes really active. There's just a lot there under that spot. And I'm looking back behind here. I'm looking as this rotates in. You watch this region right here, just behind it. And it's not a sunspot region and it's not a corona hole yet, but there is something right there that will develop. Maybe not right now, but maybe by the time it rotates around the next time, there's going to be something right back in here. There's something developing here. And this corona hole, I bet you there's something going to develop right up in here, because there's a bright spot here that's, yeah, there's a corona hole trying to open here, but there's something blocking it. There's just a lot there. Energy-wise, there's a lot right in that region right there that we got to keep our eyes on. Okay, let's jump over to flares real quick. Looking at our flares, we have had a lot of M-class flares, but we're kind of, remember our pattern. It gets really active all of a sudden for a little bit, and then it kind of draws a deep breath, calms down for a day or so, and then it rapidly intensifies. We've had some long duration flares. Look at these. These are not short duration flares. These are long periods of time. And these are the ones that are going to cause a little bit more of an issue than these quick hot flares that we've had the last couple days, where they just boom, they're there, and 20 minutes later they're gone. These are going to linger, and these are going to come in, I think, on the 6th, and these are not on the forecast yet. NOAA has not updated their forecast model to include these yet. So I think these are going to come in sometime later. We've got tonight's forecast, and then we're kind of looking at the dark. They really haven't changed what they think is coming on the 4th or the 5th and the 6th yet. I think these are going to come in on the night of the 5th into the morning of the 6th, and I think these are going to be longer duration patterns. These are going to be quick and they're gone. This is going to be a quick and it's gone. It's going to be big, but it's not going to last maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and it's going to be gone. It's not, they're quick hits. They're there and they're gone. These M classes, they will last. They're all together close, and they're all a long duration. So this will be maybe an hour or two. This might stay elevated to a very low level, and then you're all of a sudden going to have a spike of activity. These little bigger, maybe, maybe like it'll be maybe a KP4, and then all of a sudden it might spike to a 5. Or it might be a KP4, and then all of a sudden it spikes to a 6. But it's not going to be, and this one is going to be super quick. If it hits us, it's going to be like there and gone. I mean, it's going to be so quick, if you're not sitting right there, it's going to be gone before you can even catch it. And some of these are going to hit on the U.S. daytime. This, I think, will be U.S. daytime. It might hit into the early evening hours on the 6th. Might hit. This might come in on the early evening day side, but this will be in the overnight hours for U.S. This, I'm thinking, might be maybe might hit nighttime, but I might hit daytime. Might be more of an Australia thing. We're just going to have to really be aware of the timing here. It just, again, depends on the speed. Some of these may be moving faster than others, which makes predictions harder than others. So, you might have a C class that's moving at a 36-hour pace, and then that X class might be moving at a 24. and it's going to really play hard to guess at when it's going to come in. Okay. Our active regions that are playing today is, again, the 3112 and the 3110 have been the only ones producing. Oh, what did we do here? Oh, we went the wrong spot here. Okay, hang on. Okay, now we're back in the right spot. Looking at our sunspot regions, we have 3112, which is right here in the center part is where it's really active. This is a delta region, and that's what we want to watch the most. But we rapidly have 3116 up here starting to steal some energy. 3115 and 3117 have rapidly come on in the last 36 hours. They've come out of nowhere. And down here we have 3114 that's sitting down here. And I don't know why they don't put 3114 on here, but it's there. 3110 is still producing, but it has gone down to a 35% chance of an M class and only a 15% probability of a X class flare, which is down like 10% from where it was early this morning. 3111 is still there. It's only just lingering. It really isn't doing much at all. 3112 is still there. It's at an 85% chance. It's still at this is up a little bit. It has jumped up since this afternoon. It is back up to a 20% chance of producing an X-class flare in the last few hours. And it is at a 40% chance of an M-class flare. But the capability of an M-class, X-class flare was down earlier today. And we are now back up to a 20%. So that has increased. 3113 is over here by 10. It's only 15% chance. It's not a major player. 3115. It is only at a 20% chance of doing anything, but it's under that horseshoe filament. And it's right under that really complex filament region between it and 3117. And it has come up out of nowhere in like less than 36 hours. So this one is a player. This one is a player. Don't rule this out because he's just started developing. 3613 is this area right here. Right up here to the top. And he has just started lambing on to the backside of 3112. So he is just starting to develop up here in the last 24 hours. And he is growing quite rapidly. And then 3117 is down here. He's only a baby, only at a 5% chance of doing anything. But the energy is there. And the thing I'm seeing is he's the other end of those filaments. So those filaments are looping between 17 and 15. There's a much deeper, much more complex pattern forming underneath, deeper underneath the surface, running in a line between the lower sunspot region of 3017 and 3115 up underneath in a line to 3112 and 3116. There's a much deeper pattern, and then there's something they're trying to form out behind 3117 and 3115. There's a pattern that's starting to boil, and I'm starting to see something that says there's something there. There's just something deeper under the surface of the sun that is very disruptive. And I think we have a pattern that we need to watch. And it'll be quiet, I think, today as it's Earth facing. And then I think it's going to go nuts about the day it gets out of Earth facing. So we want to watch it. Coronal holes. We have this coronal hole is developing. This is trying to develop, but we've got a bright region in here that's not quite sure what it's doing here. This is a region I'm saying watch. You can see this boiling. We can see a bright region here that's trying to do something, and it's reminding me of this region before it developed. So I think there's something here underneath, deep, 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 deep in the sun. Okay, jumping over our space enthusiast page, we have flatlined everything. Wind speed, not even breaking 500. Density is down. We are magnetically flatlined again. BZ, flatlined. It's not doing nothing. But we are not to that magic hour yet. We're a couple hours out from where they think that's going to hit us. Overnight hours, we did hit a KP5. And it seemed to be hitting right at sunset, before midnight. Now, that being said, looking at our sunset cycle and our long-term forecast, we are now 72% illuminated, and it's going to stay up past 1 o'clock. It's going to be, if we do get something, and it does happen before midnight, it's going to be very washed out. So it would have to be an exceptionally strong storm to be really brilliant. So looking down at the NASA Emerald Spiral, this is what I want you to be looking at. Notice we have this storm taking off. And she has a little bit different emerald spiral up for some reason than what I'm seeing. But what I'm looking at and what I want you to see is this. You notice as this solar storm peaks out here, this blue line starts to move out here. What does that say? It's a negative charge. What have I been saying all week long? That we've had the same polarity hitting us? That it's pushing it away? Tonight's hit may be a negative polarity. So if I was a betting person tonight, I would be out right at sunset until at least midnight, waiting for what's coming to hit. Because if it hits, it's likely to be the right magnetism to give us a show. So that is what I am looking at right there. I'm looking at it being the negative BZ that we need to hit and give us a show. We are predicted to be at a KP6 by between 8 and midnight, and dwindling down through the overnight hours and down to a KP4. And then if you listen to Tamitha, she says that NOAA does not have 6 done or changed yet, and they are still going by the old prediction models. And I think they're right, because I think these will be much bigger on the 6th, just based on what I am seeing from the flaring activity and from the CME activity, that I think these numbers here and these numbers in here will be much bigger. Looking at the cloud cover, we have a cloud system moving in, and this is much thicker if you add in the low-level clouds. But we have a system moving in here from the west It's going to be over Minnesota and Wisconsin tonight, moving into lower Michigan tonight. This is going to be much thicker than what's seen on the graph here. This is high level clouds. It's going to get much lower and thicker. And I think if you're in northern Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, you just might get skunked. And you might not see much of anything. You're going to have to get out your weather radar maps and really look for the holes in the clouds. And that's where you're going to have to do your best guesses. And sometimes it's a matter of a couple miles to find the hole in the clouds. So everybody have a good night. Do your best. But then we are going to be calming down for the rest of this month so far. Now is a good time for the rest of the month to focus on getting your good fall colors, to work on the last of your Milky Way shots, because the Milky Way is going to be gone soon for the winter and will not return till later in the spring. We should have some meteor showers coming up, I do believe, this month or early next month. I have to look that up. But I have been seeing meteors for the last couple days. But you have lots of fall activities to do with your kids. And it's time to get your houses buttoned up for winter. It's time to get your cars planned out for winter. Ladies, do yourself a favor. Get yourselves a 5-gallon bucket. Put some old-fashioned clay kitty litter in it. It will be the best thing you ever do for yourself in the winter, because it will get you unstuck if you're by yourself. My mother was a mail carrier, and she would regularly get stuck at mailboxes, and that was what she used to get unstuck without help. It's the old-fashioned clay kitty litter. It gives you traction on ice without melting the ice and making it a slick cesspit. It'll get you off the slick ice. I've done it myself. I don't know how many times I was by myself and no guy to push me out, and I could throw that kitty litter under the tires of the car real thick and rock it back and forth and get myself unstuck. So that big fat candle, one of those 30-hour burning candles you get at Walmart, real cheap. You might have to crack your window just a little bit to let fresh air in so the carbon dioxide doesn't build up in the car. But if you're stuck in a snowbank and you can't get out and you can't run your car, that will burn for 30 hours and it'll put off a surprising amount of heat to keep you warm. And you want to find some warm ideas. Get an emergency blanket in your car that you can wrap yourselves in, or a couple of them. They're easy to store, small enough you can throw in your glove box, but will put up an amazing amount of warmth if you don't have another option and you're stuck somewhere. Might want to consider looking at those of you that like to go up north into the UP and you live a little more dangerously, and know that there is not cell phone reception where you go. You might want to consider at least getting at least a handheld CB radio, or getting a CB radio put in your car, because that could be the difference between you staying stuck and getting help, because it's not a good thing to take off walking in the middle of the winter. So these are some ideas you should be thinking about planning for, because winter is coming, and now is the time to button up for winter. So that being said, everybody have a good time. Looking forward to seeing any pictures that everybody got, and have fun, everybody.